You can hear. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to Sports Shorts Monday. Ronnie Rants alongside Tommy Chrysand, TK over at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. Great food over at Court Street Cafe. We've been telling you for years about their breakfast and lunch, and TK now gets to enjoy their dinners on Monday nights. I'm at an undisclosed location in Lake Charles, Louisiana, coming to you at, of course, we've got the Gumbo Gators and the Rougarou to tell you about. Also, the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame golf tournament coming up on the 12th of May. The Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame golf tournament on the 12th of May. So go to lasportshall.com and you can join us for our celebrity event in Alexandria. All right, a lot to get to. Obviously, we'll talk NFL draft. The New Orleans Saints had a number of picks that we'll go through, tell you our thoughts on them. Also, we'll talk LSU baseball. I cannot remember a time where LSU baseball was this bad, although I will say in 2006, Paul Maneri's first year as head coach at LSU, that team would battle this one. That team had Charlie Furbush on the bump, a lefty who pitched in the big leagues. So that would have been interesting to see Charlie Furbush against this lineup. But that team wasn't very potent offensively, where this team, it kind of seems like offensively they're doing okay. They just can't pitch it. But anyway, one of the worst LSU baseball teams going back to 1984, since Skip Bertman was there. 42 years of LSU baseball. This one this year probably going to go down as one of the top 3 worst teams in the last 40 years of LSU baseball. That was a shocker considering they were number 1 in the country 8 games into the season. They get swept at Mississippi State. They've lost 9 in a row in SEC play, have been swept 3 straight times, and they find themselves now second to worst team in the league, ahead of Missouri. Oh, by the way, South Carolina, who fired Paul Maneri, has more wins than LSU this year. Unbelievable to think that. And those 2 teams will do battle this weekend in Baton Rouge. Probably going to be some of the smallest attendance the Tigers have seen in quite a while this weekend at the box. Before we get to all the other stuff, let's get to the NFL draft. LSU, probably the highs and lows. Let's talk LSU. They had a 6th pick overall in the draft. They also had Garrett Nussmeier goes 7th round on Saturday. The Chiefs take Garrett Nussmeier 7th round. Clearly, he's not going there to battle for a starting job. They're looking at potentially a backup, and who knows? Maybe he develops into something, and you can get some trade bait for him in a couple years. But Garrett Nussmeier going 7th round, Tommy, to the Kansas City Chiefs has to be one of the biggest surprises in recent LSU draft history.
Especially when you go back to August, he was a front runner, among the front runners for the Heisman. LSU was expected to be a playoff team, and then it just went south from there. Okay, he was MVP of the Senior Bowl, so obviously he bounced back a little bit. But, I think going to the Chiefs, Andy Reid's a quarterback guru. Mahomes, you can learn from him. I think it's a good spot for him to go and learn and continue to develop to see if he can get on the field in the future, or like you said, get traded to somebody, or, maybe 3 years from now, he's a starter there. But Mansour DeLon also went to the Chiefs. They moved up a little bit in the draft to get him. He was considered a top DB in the draft. So pretty good. A couple of the LSU guys got picked. A couple of them that, like Bauer Sharp, the tight end, went late. So we'll see how it all pans out as all the OTAs and mini camps will get going. But the Saints picked 7 guys in the draft. Ronnie, last year, every player the Saints drafted made the team and appeared at least once in a game, regular season game. But, we'll start it off. Jordan Tyson, wide receiver from Arizona State. Huge upside. He's a good size guy, but he's had more than a couple of injuries that have plagued him in his career. 2nd and 3rd round, to get a couple of guys from Georgia. Kristen Miller, a defensive tackle, and Oscar Delp, a tight end who Joel Davis is big on. And he's got the numbers. He's got the measurables. And then in the 4th round, offensive lineman from Auburn, Jeremiah Wright. SEC guys are battle tested. SEC had the most people picked in the NFL draft. Next closest is the Big Ten with 21 picks behind the SEC. Then they took a wide receiver, Bryce Lance from North Dakota State. We know North Dakota State's a heck of a program. We know that, okay? And they play at a high level. And, there's some upside with him. Lorenzo Styles, a defensive back from Ohio State, battle tested in the Big Ten. And then in the sixth round, we mentioned Barry and Brown from LSU, who can also contribute, hopefully, in the kick return game if he can make the team. And then seventh round of DB, TJ Hall from Iowa. Iowa players are known for being a little bit smart. I don't know if he's in that category, but all in all, I think it's 7 good picks. They pick up a couple of other defensive linemen in some trades, traded away a pick, and then signed a couple of free agent guys. Doesn't look good for Cam Jordan coming back to the Saints. We'll learn about that as we go. But all in all, most of the national pundits give the Saints a pretty good grade on the draft. And like you said, this team more than 1 or 2 or 3 players away from being good. So if they can hit on all these guys like they hit on last year, NFC South's not the strongest division, maybe they can make some noise.
Well, the New Orleans Saints still not in a great cap situation. They're still trying to climb their way out of that. And a year ago they were in cap jail, so they couldn't really be a player in the free agent market. So they needed the drafted players to play, either whether they were ready or not. Here they come. This draft, I think, gives definite optimism. I think through the first probably 5 picks that those guys not only will play, but potentially really play and really help your team. I mean, their needs, wide receiver, defensive middle to stop the run when the Saints were so pathetic last year. And then I think averaged 120 yards they gave up a game. And then, a lot of the 2 tight ends and 3 tight end systems that are in vogue right now that makes sense. At the tight end position, and then offensive line. You can't ever have enough of those, and they've had some struggles health wise on offensive line, and so I mean it. And then with Brown, the kick return game. His value is the fact that he can obviously be a receiver, but also help you in the kick return game. So it definitely feels like they did a good job in the draft and didn't do anything silly or do anything too ridiculous. The wide receiver Lance from North Dakota State is going to be interesting to see. A little bit of a project, but the freak athleticism is there, and the fact that he runs 4.2, 4.3 40, gives him an opportunity. His size gives him an opportunity to show something. Obviously, the hands will be the question mark. But I thought it was on paper, and I think it was a good draft, and it gives the Saints some. I think they're going to have to be active, Tommy, in the second round of free agency, in the sense that getting some of those veteran guys that haven't signed contracts yet. I think the Saints are going to be active in that going into camp.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of what they got to do, and we're just going to have to see what they do and how it all transpires going forward. What they're going to do with Kamara and Cam Jordan. A lot of things have to shake out, but I think if you're a Saints fan, you got to feel good about the draft, like you just said, and good about the short term future. And and if they hit on 7 of these guys, they hit on 4 or 5 of them that can play more than a couple snaps, then good. I mean, there lots of guys are making teams now that are drafted in the 5th, 6th, 7th round that didn't do it years ago. And it's because of the salary cap and all the salaries and the big guys getting all the money. They got to have them guys that make $1 million a year that came in the 5th round or the 6th round or make $800,000 a year. So I'm okay with where the Saints are today, but there's still a lot of pieces to the puzzle that need to be put in.
Yeah, it's kind of like back in the day when the NCAA instituted the GPA rule, in the early 90s, when they said when you bring in a player on a visit, you have to reveal your team's GPA for the last 2 semesters, no matter the sport. So if you were on a gymnastics visit, you had to know that the last 2 semesters, hey, this is our gymnastics team, had a GPA of this or this. And so what happened is that you had to get a Warren Morris, who was a valedictorian at Bolton High. You had to get a Jason Williams, who was an academic scholarship guy from Santa Ma. You had to get, there's all the Catholic High Baton Rouge guys that were real smart and good students to make up for the Ron Rances and others, the Adrian Antoninis, the Keon Cooks, and the others that had the lower GPA. So it's kind of like that with the salary cap, right? You got to have the free agents and the guys that aren't gonna, you don't have to pay a whole lot to make up for the guys you have to pay a whole bunch of money. So you got the haves and the have-nots. The guys making 10, 15, 20 million dollars a year, and the guys making $1 million a year. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's what you have to do with cap wise. Let's talk a little bit about I want to go back to Nussmeier for a second. Going into the draft, Tommy, I thought Garrett Nussmeier was going to go much higher than where he ended. I thought he was going to be a top 3 round draft pick. I really did. I thought based off of what he did in the Senior Bowl, based off of the understanding of what was wrong with him physically, and now we know that they figured out what was wrong with him physically, and they didn't know what was wrong with him physically throughout the fall. I thought all of that gave him an excuse to say, okay, we know now why he didn't have a good senior year or final year. But I think the biggest issue with Garrett Nussmeier and why he fell all the way down to the 7th round is because of the lack of foot speed and the lack of agility and athleticism. He is more your standard old pocket passer, Dan Marino style with, type of deal without being 6'5" with the super cannon. And that just doesn't play these days. They don't want that. Ideally, they want the guy that can really run and be fast and elusive and all that. And that's not what Garrett Nussmeier is. And I think they think that if he plays, he's going to get sacked the whole ton.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I thought 3rd or 4th round, based on everything you pretty much said. But you make the right point. Quarterbacks in the NFL now have to be able to extend the play and on 3rd and 6 pick up that first down, or avoid the sack and not have a 12-yard loss and gets knocked down at the line of scrimmage or whatever. So yeah, that may work against him, but we know he's got a big arm. We know he's got the football IQ, and all that stuff. But it takes more than that to quarterback in the NFL.
Let's talk a little golf. Some big news out of New Orleans regarding golf. First off, the positive, the PGA Tour Zurich Classic ended this Sunday, and a little bit of rain, nothing major. Crowds were not as big as they were the last 2 years because no Rory McIlroy playing in the event. And they didn't have a field with a whole lot of people you knew. No Sam Burns playing in the event. What's that all about? But they did have Fitzpatrick, who had won the event last week on the PGA Tour. So you had a tour winner from the week ago playing with Matthew Fitzpatrick, playing with his brother, who's struggled to be on the tour, has played in a few events, but hasn't gotten his permanent tour card. And now, he got, I heard behind the scenes, he was talked into playing and honoring the commitment by his parents. His parents got involved along with the 4 Kids Foundation to be like, they basically begged him to play. The parents said, hey, do this for your brother, help your brother out. Cause because if you win, you get an exemption on the tour for a year or 2. And well, his brother and him won the event. So Fitzpatrick won back-to-back weeks on the tour. His brother got his card. It was a great feel-good story. And but the crowds were not as big as they were the last couple of seasons.
Well, you're right. He gets his card and a little bit of silver lining. His brother Matt, the champion, hit a bunker shot on 18, 2 feet from the hole. And so then Alex had to tap it in. So he did tap it in, get his card, picked up a bunch of cash, and who knows what they could do to his career. Obviously, he's exempt into numerous events now, and he's got his card. And so we'll see how it goes. I mean, does he fade away or not? But, it's always good to have the PGA Tour in New Orleans, same weekend, Jazz Fest, all of that. But Ronnie, in New Orleans, big news. I saw a little earlier this evening, the Live Golf Tournament, which was scheduled for City Park in New Orleans in June, has been canceled. Not going to happen. Live Golf has refunded the state of Louisiana $1 million fee that was put up like a good faith thing, like, yeah, we're going to do this. And I know they was sinking a lot of money into that golf course. I don't know what's going to happen with all that, but Live Golf will not play in New Orleans in June. And as you mentioned, the state was on the hook for a lot of money for that event. And now maybe they're not. And it might be another sign that Live Golf, before we know it, is going to be gone.
Tommy, you want to play the City Park golf course later this month because it's going to be in great shape, because they were doing some things the last few months to get that course, as best shape and pristine as they could for that event at the end of June. So now all that work gets to get used on people like you and I that just go pay $100 to play it. But there will be the course is going to be in great shape. I actually saw where they were the last time I played that course. I played golf, I think once, maybe twice this year, meaning since January 1. And I played it in January, and you could see where they were trying to shrink the fairway. What I mean by that is it's a wide fairway because it's made for public golf. And they were kind of growing the grass to form a narrower fairway with a thinner rough. So they took the giant fairway, and you could see where they were outlining, okay, where we're going to bring the fairway in just to make it more challenging for these pros. Because if they didn't change that course, those pros would go out there and shoot 63 on that thing. Every all of them shooting the 60s, all of them. So they were trying to make it a little bit more challenging, and so now they probably did that. But it's of course going to be in great shape. So definitely try to play City Park in the month of May. That's for sure. But it's a look. I'm glad they canceled it, Tommy, for two reasons. One, the state of Louisiana got bamboozled into doing the Live Golf Tournament because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump was affiliated with the Live Golf Tour because they were playing the golf event at his course, the Blue Monster, Doral, for the last couple of years in Miami.
The PGA Tour is at Trump's course this week, which is why they were going to come to New Orleans in June with the Live Tour. So, again, it's up in the air now to say it's not going to happen in New Orleans. The Live Golf Tour is up in the air.
Right. So what happened is that Trump asked Landry to do this, right? So Landry agreed. All right, Louisiana, we're going to get involved with Trump. We're going to guarantee. I think it was like $5 million. It was either 5 or 7. I think it's 5 for sure. It might have been 7. They're going to guarantee them. They put $1,000 million down, kind of as like you mentioned, a deposit. And meanwhile, the PGA Tour, which has been coming here for years, has never gotten money from the state. And so the PGA wasn't real thrilled about it. 4 Kids and Zurich wasn't real thrilled. Like, wait a minute. The new kids, you're going to give them millions of dollars? You've never given us money. And so it's a bad deal for the state of Louisiana. You don't want to really piss off the PGA Tour, which has been coming here since the 60s or whatever, maybe 50s. I don't even remember. And actually has a successful event. And so anyway, long story short, this lets the state off the hook because right after the state got involved with the Live, Trump patched things up with PGA, and now PGA is going back to Miami. So, because of that, there was no reason now to be affiliated with Live. We were doing it as a favor to the president because he and the governor are politically connected. It was a bad idea to have a golf tournament the last weekend in June and May anyway in New Orleans. That's like 1,000,000 degrees. I mean, it was hot yesterday when I was out there at the golf tournament. I couldn't imagine having a event. There'd be nobody at that thing at the last weekend in June. So this ends up being a good thing for the state. It lets them off the hook. They don't need to pay the money, and we can be done with the Live Tour. That thing is about to go away.
Yeah, I don't think the Live Tour will be around at this time. When we get to Christmas, I don't think the Live Tour is going to exist. We'll see. But unlike you, it's good for the state of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, the whole bit that it kind of worked out this way. In the big picture, I'm sure there's a handful of people disappointed, but that's not important right here. Money is important. Money.
And by the way, Full Swing, of course, the documentary on Netflix. I've been watching it, a few days. I mean, it's great. They filed the 2025 season. Awesome. You should watch it. Tommy, I have to put you on it. I think you've watched it before. But there's a good chance that they're going to feature the Fitzpatrick brothers on it next year. When you got a guy in Matthew Fitzpatrick, we're only in April. He's already won back-to-back weeks on the tour. It's a great feel-good story about his brother, playing with them and getting his card. And now his brother gets to be, on the tour. So there's a good chance that you might see some Netflix, the Zurich Classic gets some love on Netflix next year.
Well, and as you mentioned, the story about his parents saying, "Hey, don't let your brother down. You need to go ahead and play. Go ahead and do, having to do it." That whole story, and then he taps in the 2-footer to clinch the tournament by one shot. He doesn't make that putt, there's a playoff. So that sounds like a perfect script for Netflix.
All right, TK, LSU baseball. The
Uh,
Tigers are in action tomorrow night against your alma mater, the Southeastern Lions. Uh, the Lions are, battling right now to be one of those. They're battling right now, tied for the lead in the Southland with Lamar. They'll face each other this week. Remember, the top two teams in the Southland host the following week the first round of the Southland Conference tournament. They do the pod system like like the NCAA regional. Four teams go play at the number one seed. Four teams go play at the number two seed, and then the winners play a 2 out of 3 the following week to see who gets the automatic bid to our NCAA regional. Right now, Southeastern would host, but the LSU Tigers, Tommy, I hate to beat up on them and to just pile on. It's clear that Jay Johnson a week ago made the decision to just play for next year with his lineup, getting all these freshmen and then all these guys on the bump. LSU lost 3 games this weekend, Tommy, where they had the lead in all 3 games.
They scored 3 runs in the top of the first in all 3 games. Okay, you got to get one of those to be a win. I know you got a lot of baseball left, etc. But the bullpen coin flip. It's just not been there. And Jay Johnson, he's putting a lineup out there, doing his best. Develop, see who he's got. He's still trying to win the game. Obviously, he'll do what he thinks necessary to win the game. One thing Jay Johnson's got to do, Ronnie, he has issued, and he did it all weekend. Some of his challenges are on plays that aren't even close. Naked eye gets it right. But somebody's telling him, "Hey, challenge it," or it's a strategy thing. Thinking that he's got to do that. So I don't know, but yeah, LSU baseball. Southeastern's good, 16-8 in their conference, along with Lamar. That's a big weekend series in Beaumont this weekend. That'll go a long way and for both of those teams and how the postseason will be. And then, South Carolina comes in Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And again, we said it. LSU's in 15th place in the Southeastern Conference. Back in late February, they were number 1 in the nation. Now they're 15th in the SEC.
Tommy, they're batting 279 on the season. That's not SEC batting average. That's on the season. That's like I want to say that's like maybe 40 points lower than they were this time a year ago or something. I don't know. I'll look that up. But and their team ERA is 5.35 as a staff for the season. And look, now they're playing without Cooper Moore. They're playing without Case and Evans. So 2 of their 3, their number 1 starter and their number 2 starter, gone. Case and Evans was a scratch this weekend. Felt something in his arm. Out of an abundance of caution, they're going to hold him out. So that's a bad deal. So they don't have the depth to overcome that. It is just shocking what's going on. This team, Tommy, this year has walked 220 batters in 388 in the third innings this year, and has hit 60. So they have 280 free passes in 388 innings. That's just way, way too many. And there's
And,
SEC averages numbers are way worse than that.
and then you
Those
throw in a lot, dozens of wild pitches, pass balls that's giving 90 feet away here and there. Sometimes 2 guys get 90 feet. It's just
72 wild pitches for LSU in 45 games. So that's a wild pitch and a half, 1.5 per game. A 60 hit batters, as I mentioned. So that's, over 1 per game. Um, and it's just shocking with what's going on with this LSU baseball team. And then offensively, you're kind of starting to figure it out a little bit. They scored enough runs to win at least 2 games this weekend. Derek Curiel still hitting 337. Omar Cerna Jr. had a huge weekend. He's hitting 314. The true freshman hitting 314 with 6 bombs, to go along with 7 doubles. Jake Brown, of course, out for the year. Cade Beatty, another guy having a really good year offensively, 306 average to go along with 7 bombs and now 13 home runs. So, look, your 2 catchers, DH catchers, both hitting over 300, Both one's a freshman, one's a sophomore, so that bodes well. Derek Curiel, and Jake Brown will be gone. Um, Mason Braun's average is now up over 305. He'll be back next year. He's gotten on fire, 11 doubles, which is the most on the team. And he's got 7 homers as well. Stephen Milam's turned it around offensively. He was hitting under 250 at one point this season. He's now up at 284 and has the second most at bats on the team behind Derek Curiel. He's had 11 doubles. Excuse me. Braun doesn't have 11 doubles. That was Milam's got the 11 doubles. So, you know, they have some good stories. Edward Yaman is a good story. He's hit 273 and, has a couple homers, including a big 3-run jack this past weekend. So they have some good stories, but not enough of them.
Pop your picture back on, Ronnie. And Steven makes the comment. I posted it on the screen. In the last 4 games, LSU has scored 34 runs. That's 8.5 runs a game. I can do that math. And they went 1-3. Scored 34 runs in 4 games and went 1-3. Now, Mississippi State's a good team. It could be a 2 seed in the tournament and, probably make some noise. And they were at home, all that. But, that's just we can make a long list of the reasons LSU is in 15th place in the SEC.
By the way, saw Steven yesterday at the golf tournament. He was there with his wife.
I saw on Facebook he was down there.
Yeah, ran into him last night. Of course, he was in the VIP,
Right, that's Steven.
All right, Tommy, tell us about what else we got going on and what's going on at Court Street.
Well, LSU spring football's over, so we'll see what happens next with them. Major League Baseball's rolling on, and we'll just see how it all plays out.
By the way, speaking of Major League Baseball, Paul Skeens had an amazing game Friday?
Last Friday, he was perfect into the 7th, gave up a hit. They got him out. He got the win with a great line. Nola got ripped again for the Phillies on Saturday. Bet against him because he's just not, he might not be around much longer. But, you still got, the Cubs have been hot. The Mets have been terrible. You still got some stuff going on. Dodgers are still good. But, that's about it right now with Major League Baseball. It's still there. They're 30 games into the season, give or take, on each team's schedule.
All right, well, we'll be back on Friday morning for more Sports Shorts Friday morning edition, 9 a.m. on Friday. So we'll be talking, get you kind of updated on what's going on in the world of sports. Hopefully LSU gets things turned around. We'll also tell you on Friday, I'll be over at UL for the Raging Cajuns have a game on Friday. This weekend, they're retiring Jonathan Lucroy's jersey, the former Raging Cajun great who's going into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame this June. Jonathan Lucroy on Saturday will have his jersey retired. It's alumni weekend, and we'll honor Lucroy Friday night at the game for the Hall of Fame.
That sounds great. LouisianaSportsHall.com. I have it on the screen. Got a golf tournament coming up in Alexandria. You also have the induction ceremony last weekend in June. That's a super duper event. LASportsHall.com. And hey, don't forget Court Street Cafe here in Port Allen. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. We came over here for many years on a Monday morning breakfast, and people in here eating out on the patio eating. We've been coming the last month or so on Monday nights for Sports Shorts Monday. A lot of people in here eating dinner, having some drinks at the bar when I arrived. It's always good stuff here with Jason and his staff at Court Street Cafe. Saturday night steak night. They get their steaks from Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. And their Sunday brunch, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. is really good on a Sunday if you're looking for something different. Just make that trip over the bridge. Take a right. A couple of minutes, you'll be in the parking lot at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. Now, don't forget, we're back Friday morning with Sports Shorts Friday and Sports Shorts Radio this Saturday. We're at Fat Daddy's in Plaquemine. You're certainly welcome to come out and join us. On behalf of Ronnie Rance, I'm Tommy Christ saying enjoy the week, everyone.